The bridge of the UCS Defiant hummed with quiet energy as Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the main communications console. His weathered hands gripped the metal railing as he watched the stars stretch past the viewscreen. This was it, the moment that would change everything between Earth and the galaxy. "Admiral, we're ready to transmit," said Communications Officer Nina Rodriguez, her fingers dancing over the control panel. The young woman had been handpicked for this mission because of her skill with alien communication systems. Morrison nodded and straightened his dark blue uniform. Behind him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with focused determination. Captain Sophie Turner monitored the navigation systems, while engineer Lisa Baker kept watch over the ship's new quantum drive systems. They were humanity's best, and today they would speak for all of Earth. "Open the channel to all known galactic civilizations," Morrison commanded. His deep voice carried the authority of someone who had spent 30 years defending Earth's colonies. The transmission began, carrying across space toward dozens of alien worlds. Morrison's image and voice would reach the Zephyrian Empire, the Krell Federation, the Andorian Collective, and every other spacefaring race in this part of the galaxy. What he said next would either bring peace or war. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Colonial Defense Fleet," he began, looking directly into the camera. "We are officially notifying all spacefaring civilizations that the Sol system and its colonies are now under human protection. Any hostile actions against human settlements or trade routes will be met with immediate military response." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We seek peaceful relations with all species, but we will defend ourselves and our people. This message serves as both introduction and warning. We hope for friendship, but we are prepared for conflict." The transmission ended. Morrison turned to face his crew, knowing that their lives had just become much more complicated. 12 light-years away, in the golden halls of the Zephyrian High Council, Supreme Commander Vexitara watched the human transmission with growing amusement. Her scaled features twisted into what passed for a smile among her people. Around the circular chamber, other council members chittered and clicked in their native language. "Humans," she said, her voice carrying across the room through the translation devices. "These primitive creatures dare to threaten us." General Crixnoth, her chief military advisor, stood from his seat. His massive frame towered over the other council members. "Commander, our intelligence reports show they have perhaps 20 warships total. Their technology is barely beyond chemical rockets." The council chamber filled with laughter. These Zephyrians had ruled 12 star systems for over 2,000 years. Their empire stretched across a quarter of the galaxy's outer rim. The idea that humans could challenge them seemed absurd. "They have been in space for what, 50 years? Asked Councilmember Thexara, her voice dripping with contempt. "We have been conquering worlds since before their species discovered fire." Vexitara activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. It showed a three-dimensional map of known space with human territory marked in small blue dots. Compared to the vast red areas showing Zephyrian control, Earth's influence looked tiny. "Look at this," she said, gesturing with one clawed hand. "They control perhaps 6 systems. We control over 300. Their largest ship is smaller than our escort vessels." The intelligence data scrolled past on the display. Human population numbers, industrial capacity, military strength, all of it looked insignificant compared to the Zephyrian Empire. Their ships used simple fusion drives while Zephyrian vessels traveled through folded space. Their weapons were crude particle beams while the Empire wielded plasma cannons that could crack planets. "Perhaps we should teach them their place," suggested General Crixnoth. "A small demonstration of our power would show them the foolishness of their warning." But not everyone in the chamber agreed. Intelligence analyst Yexmira stood from her position near the back. She was younger than most council members, with bright green scales that marked her as coming from the outer colonies. "Commander, I would advise caution," she said, her voice respectful but firm. "Human behavior patterns show unusual adaptability. They have survived several extinction events on their homeworld." Vexitara's eyes narrowed. "You think these hairless apes pose a threat to the Empire?" "I think they should not be dismissed so easily," Yexmira replied. "Their military history shows rapid innovation under pressure. They went from wooden ships to nuclear weapons in less than 200 years. General Crixnoth snorted. "Ancient history. What matters is current capability, and they have none." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Zephyrian Empire had faced dozens of challenges over the centuries. Young races often made bold statements when they first reached the stars. Usually a small show of force was enough to bring them into line. What the Zephyrians did not know was that human space buzzed with secret activity. On hidden research stations throughout the Sol system, teams of scientists and engineers worked on projects that would reshape galactic warfare. Dr. Amanda Foster sat in her laboratory on Earth's moon, studying alien psychology reports that had been gathered by human intelligence agents. She was one of the few people who truly understood what the Zephyrian response would likely be. Humans had just challenged the biggest bully in the galaxy, and bullies always responded with violence. "They'll come for us," she told her research assistant, Dr. Frank Miller. The Zephyrians have never backed down from a challenge in their entire history. Meanwhile, in hidden facilities on Mars and the asteroid belt, Lisa Baker's engineering teams worked around the clock. They had made breakthroughs that even Admiral Morrison did not fully understand. Quantum displacement technology, molecular disruptors, adaptive shield systems. Humanity was about to leap centuries ahead in military capability. Back on the UCS Defiant, Admiral Morrison stood in his private quarters looking out at the stars. Communications Officer Rodriguez had already received dozens of responses to their transmission. Most alien races had sent polite acknowledgments. A few had offered trade agreements, but the Zephyrian Empire had remained ominously silent. Captain Turner knocked on his door. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Morrison returned to the bridge to find a secure message waiting from Fleet Command. The orders were simple: return to Earth immediately and prepare for possible conflict. Intelligence suggested that the Zephyrians were mobilizing their forces. As the Defiant turned toward home, Morrison thought about what they had started. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. The response would determine whether Earth's children would live free among the stars or serve as slaves to alien masters. He had no way of knowing that his simple warning had set in motion events that would reshape the entire galaxy. The age of human expansion was about to begin, written in fire and forged in the crucible of war. 3 months had passed since Admiral Morrison's warning echoed across the galaxy. On the agricultural world of New Phoenix, morning light filtered through the dome that protected the main settlement from the harsh winds of the outer atmosphere. Colonel Ryan Mitchell stood on the observation deck of the Colonial Defense Headquarters, watching farmers tend to their crops in the vast fields below. New Phoenix was humanity's pride among the colonies. The world fed 12 other human settlements and served as a major trading hub for the Outer Rim territories. Its population of nearly 500,000 people represented the largest concentration of humans outside the Sol system. "Colonel, we're picking up something strange on long-range sensors," reported Captain Sophie Turner from the Communications Center. Her voice carried a note of concern that made Mitchell turn away from the peaceful scene below. Mitchell walked quickly to the main control room where Turner stood over a bank of monitors. The displays showed empty space, but the sensor readings told a different story. 30 contacts moving in formation toward New Phoenix at high speed. "How long until they arrive?" Mitchell asked, his military training taking over. 6 hours, sir," Turner replied. "The signature matches Zephyrian warships, destroyer-class vessels." Mitchell felt his stomach tighten. He had served in 3 colonial wars and knew the signs of an incoming attack. The Zephyrians were coming to make good on their threat to teach humanity its place. "Sound the evacuation alarm," he ordered. "Get every civilian to the underground shelters. Contact all defense posts and tell them to prepare for combat." Across the colony, sirens began to wail. Families gathered their belongings and rushed toward the massive underground facilities that had been built for exactly this situation. Children cried as their parents carried them away from their homes, not knowing if they would ever return. In space above New Phoenix, Battle Commander Kelthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon. His yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation as he watched the human world grow larger on his view screen. This would be an easy victory that would send a message to all the galaxy about the price of challenging the Zephyrian Empire. "Commander, we're detecting defensive positions around the planet," reported his tactical officer. "Perhaps 20 installations with basic plasma cannons." Kelthor laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. 20 installations against 30 destroyers? These humans are more foolish than we thought. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation as they approached the planet. Each destroyer carried enough firepower to level a city, and Kelthor planned to make the destruction visible from orbit. The other races would see what happened to those who dared threaten the Empire. But down on New Phoenix, the humans were not simply waiting to die. In the Colonial Defense Center, communications specialist Kevin Park worked frantically at his console, coordinating with every human settlement in the system. He had developed new communication protocols that allowed instant coordination between defensive positions. "All stations, this is Phoenix Control," he broadcast. "Execute Plan Delta 7. Repeat, execute Plan Delta 7. Around the planet, hidden defensive platforms powered up their systems. These were not the simple plasma cannons the Zephyrians had detected. Human engineers had been busy over the past 3 months, installing new weapons based on designs from Earth's secret research programs. Captain Turner coordinated the ground-based defenses, while Colonel Mitchell prepared the evacuation ships. They had 6 large transports hidden in underground hangars, enough to carry most of the civilian population to safety. The plan was simple: hold the Zephyrians off long enough to get the people away, then make the enemy pay for every meter of ground. The first Zephyrian attack came just after noon. Plasma beams lanced down from orbit, striking the main government buildings and reducing them to glowing slag. The aliens expected to see panic and surrender. Instead, they found themselves under attack by weapons they did not recognize. Human missile batteries fired quantum-tipped warheads that passed right through Zephyrian shields before exploding inside the alien ships. The destroyer Morning Death staggered as its hull buckled from internal explosions. 2 more ships suffered similar damage as the humans revealed their technological surprises. "Impossible," Kelthor snarled as he watched his ships take damage. "Their weapons should not penetrate our shields." His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Commander, these are not the same weapons we detected 3 months ago. The humans have upgraded their entire defensive grid." The battle raged for 6 hours. Zephyrian destroyers rained fire on the surface while human defenders struck back with everything they had. The colonists fought with desperate courage, knowing that their families depended on buying time for the evacuation. In the underground shelters, communications officer Nina Rodriguez worked to coordinate rescue operations. She had been visiting New Phoenix when the attack began, and now found herself helping to save civilian lives. Her experience with alien communication systems proved invaluable as she intercepted Zephyrian battle transmissions. "They're planning to land troops at the spaceport," she told Colonel Mitchell over the communication link. 3 companies of assault soldiers. Mitchell grimaced. Ground combat meant the Zephyrians wanted prisoners for interrogation. He could not allow that to happen. "Turner, redirect all remaining artillery to the spaceport. We stopped them from landing." The ground shook as human artillery pounded the landing zone. Zephyrian assault ships tried to touch down, but found themselves under concentrated fire from hidden positions. The aliens had expected easy victory, but instead found themselves in a costly battle against determined defenders. As night fell, the evacuation transports began their escape run. One by one, the big ships lifted off from hidden launch sites and raced toward the outer system. Zephyrian fighters tried to intercept them, but human escort pilots led by Wing Commander Terry Blake fought back with surprising skill. "Transport 7 is clear," reported Blake over the communication network. "All civilian vessels have reached the jump point." Colonel Mitchell stood in the ruins of the defense center, watching the last transport disappear into hyperspace. Most of the colonists were safe, but New Phoenix was lost. The farms burned, the cities lay in ruins, and the dream of peaceful human expansion had died in plasma fire. But the humans had accomplished something unexpected. They had inflicted serious damage on the Zephyrian attack force. 8 destroyers had been destroyed or badly damaged. The Empire had expected an easy victory, and instead found a costly fight that revealed human capabilities they did not know existed. As the surviving defenders prepared for their final stand, messages raced through human space. The attack on New Phoenix was being broadcast to every human world through quantum communication networks. The images of burning settlements and displaced families reached Earth within hours. Battle Commander Kelthor stood among the smoking ruins of the main settlement, his victory feeling hollow. The humans had fought better than expected and escaped with most of their people. Worse, intelligence reports suggested that other human worlds were mobilizing their defenses in response to the attack. He did not know that this assault had awakened something deep in the human spirit. Across human space, peaceful colonists and merchants were transforming into soldiers. The Zephyrian Empire had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. Instead, they had just learned what happened when you threatened human families. The news from New Phoenix spread through human space like wildfire. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the reports with growing anger. The images of burning farms and fleeing families played over and over on the screens around him. "How many did we lose?" he asked Fleet Commander Helen Price, who stood beside him reviewing casualty reports. 3,000 military personnel, sir," Price replied, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "The civilian casualties were minimal thanks to the evacuation, but we lost the entire colony infrastructure." Morrison nodded grimly. The Zephyrians had made their choice. They had answered humanity's diplomatic warning with violence against innocent people. Now they would learn what humans were truly capable of when pushed too far. "Helen, activate the Omega Protocol," Morrison said quietly. "It's time to show the galaxy who they're dealing with." In a secure briefing room nearby, strategic analyst Greg Watson spread out holographic displays showing human military assets across known space. He had spent years developing contingency plans for exactly this situation. The Omega Protocol was humanity's most secret military doctrine, designed for total war against a superior enemy. "We have 18 months, maybe 24 at most," Watson explained to the assembled military leaders. "The Zephyrians will need time to mobilize their main battle fleets. Right now they think they've won an easy victory. That gives us a window to prepare." Marine General Carl Thompson studied the tactical projections with interest. He commanded humanity's most elite fighting forces, troops trained for boarding actions and planetary assault. "What about ground forces? If we're going to take Zephyrian worlds, we'll need soldiers who can fight aliens on their home territory." "Already working on it," replied Colonel Beth Sanders, Thompson's second in command. She activated a display showing new training facilities being constructed throughout human space. "We're developing assault tactics specifically designed for Zephyrian ship layouts and biology. Close quarters combat in alien environments." The meeting continued for hours as humanity's military leaders planned for the largest war in human history. Every aspect of the conflict was considered, from logistics to strategy, to the psychological impact on both human and alien populations. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Industrial Coordinator Mary Johnson oversaw the greatest military buildup in human history. Thousands of mining ships stripped asteroids of raw materials while automated. Factories worked around the clock to produce warships and weapons. Production is ahead of schedule, she reported to Director Paul Richards during their daily briefing. "We'll have the first wave of new ships ready in 8 months. Richards nodded as he reviewed the industrial reports. The transformation of human space into a war machine was proceeding faster than anyone had thought possible. Civilian factories had been converted to military production, while new shipyards grew like flowers after rain throughout the outer system. The real breakthrough was happening in the secret research facilities scattered across human territory. Lisa Baker stood in her laboratory on Titan, watching as her team tested the latest quantum displacement drive. The technology was based on principles that the galaxy's other races had never discovered. "How does it look?" asked her assistant, Dr. Karen Bell, who monitored the test readings. "Better than we hoped," Baker replied with satisfaction. "The new drives will give our ships 3 times the acceleration of anything the Zephyrians have. We'll be able to run circles around their battle fleets." But speed was only part of the equation. In another facility hidden in the Kuiper Belt, weapons designer Janet Lee worked on systems that would revolutionize space combat. Her molecular disruptor arrays could bypass any known shield technology by attacking the atomic bonds of enemy hull materials. The intelligence-gathering operation was equally impressive. Agent Diana Chen coordinated spy networks that reached deep into Zephyrian space. Her operatives were mostly human traders and diplomats who had been working in alien territory for years, building contacts and gathering information. "The Zephyrians are overconfident," she reported to Admiral Morrison during a secure communication. "Their military doctrine hasn't changed in over 200 years. They're predictable. Field operative Luke Harris had spent months infiltrating a Zephyrian trade station, posing as a human merchant. His reports provided crucial details about alien ship designs, tactical procedures, and command structures. The information was invaluable for planning human assault strategies, but perhaps the most important work was being done by Dr. Amanda Foster in her psychology laboratory. She studied every piece of information about Zephyrian behavior and culture, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. They're a warrior culture, but they've been dominant for so long that they've forgotten how to adapt, she explained to a gathering of human commanders. They expect enemies to fight according to established patterns. When we do something unexpected, they'll struggle to respond. The training of human forces proceeded at breakneck pace. Captain Alex Stone led the new destroyer squadrons through combat exercises that pushed both ships and crews to their limits. The tactics they practiced were unlike anything used in previous space battles, combining lessons from Earth's naval history with innovations designed for three-dimensional combat. Wing Commander Terry Blake trained fighter pilots in techniques that would have been impossible with older technology. The new human fighters were faster and more maneuverable than anything the galaxy had seen, capable of precision strikes against much larger vessels. As the months passed, reports reached Zephyrian intelligence about unusual human activity. Most alien commanders dismissed these reports as the desperate scrambling of a defeated species. Only intelligence analyst Yex Mira continued to voice concerns about underestimating human capabilities. Commander Vexus Tara, the humans are mobilizing resources at an unprecedented rate, she reported during a council session. Our spies report massive industrial expansion and the construction of new military facilities. Supreme Commander Vex Tara waved dismissively. Let them build whatever they want. Numbers cannot overcome technological superiority. Our shields and weapons are centuries ahead of anything they possess. But Yex Mira had studied the reports more carefully than her superiors. The humans were not just building more ships, they were building different ships. The energy signatures detected by long-range sensors did not match any known human technology. I believe they have developed new capabilities, she insisted. The attack on New Phoenix revealed weapon systems we had not previously detected. General Crixnoth laughed harshly. Impossible. Human technology is primitive. A few lucky hits during their desperate defense means nothing. The debate continued, but the Zephyrian leadership remained convinced of their superiority. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and could not imagine that a young race could challenge their dominance. This arrogance would prove to be their greatest weakness. Back in human space, the preparations continued with grim determination. Every human world contributed to the war effort. Colonies that had been peaceful farming communities transformed into military supply bases. Trading stations became intelligence-gathering posts. The entire human civilization focused on a single goal: survival. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the new flagship UCS Retribution as it underwent final testing. The ship was 3 times larger than the old Defiant and incorporated every technological breakthrough human science had achieved. It would serve as the command vessel for the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. The time for preparation was almost over. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when Earth's children were threatened. The warning alarm screamed through the Zephyrian command center on their homeworld as Duty Officer Melkara stared at her sensor display in disbelief. What she was seeing could not be possible. The readings had to be wrong. Alert Supreme Commander Vexitara immediately, she called to her assistant. Tell her we have a massive fleet contact at the edge of the system. Within minutes, Vextara rushed into the command center still wearing her ceremonial robes from a state dinner. Her yellow eyes widened as she saw the tactical display. 312 contacts were moving toward Zephyr Prime in perfect formation. The size of the fleet was staggering. How many ships do the humans possess? She demanded. Our intelligence report suggested no more than 50 vessels total, replied General Crixnoth, who had arrived moments behind her. This cannot be a human fleet. But even as he spoke, communication signals identified the approaching vessels. Human ships, all of them. The impossible had become reality. In less than 2 years, humanity had built the largest battle fleet in known galactic history. On the bridge of the UCS Retribution, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the Zephyrian homeworld grow larger on his view screen. Behind him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. After 18 months of preparation, the moment of reckoning had finally arrived. Admiral, all ships report ready for combat. announced Captain Alex Stone, who commanded the Advanced Destroyer Squadron. His voice carried over the fleet communication network to every human vessel in the massive formation. Morrison nodded and activated the fleet-wide communication system. His words would be heard by over 200,000 human soldiers, sailors, and pilots who had volunteered for this mission. This is Admiral Morrison to all ships. Today we answer for New Phoenix. Today we show the galaxy that humanity will not be bullied or broken. Remember our fallen and fight with honor. The human fleet moved into attack formation as they approached the inner system. The tactical display showed Zephyrian defensive positions around their homeworld, but the aliens had been caught completely unprepared. Most of their battle fleet was scattered across the Empire, leaving only local defense forces to protect their capital. Commander Rachel North led the carrier group as swarms of human fighters launched from their ships. The small craft moved with incredible speed and agility, their quantum drives allowing maneuvers that defied traditional space combat doctrine. Her pilots had trained for this moment for months. Fighter squadrons, begin your attack runs, North ordered. Target their orbital defense platforms. Clear the way for the bombardment ships. Wing Commander Terry Blake led the first wave of fighters as they dove toward the Zephyrian installations. The enemy defensive fire was intense, but the human craft moved too fast for the alien targeting systems. Blake watched his tactical display as his pilots systematically destroyed the orbital weapons that protected Zephyr Prime. Platform 7 is down, reported one of his squadron leaders, moving to target Platform 8. Good work, Lightning Squadron, Blake replied. Keep up the pressure. Below them, Captain Julie White's bombardment ships moved into position. Her vessels carried the new quantum torpedoes that could punch through any known shield technology. The weapons had been tested extensively, but this would be their first use in actual combat. Bombardment Squadron, you have firing solutions on the planetary defense grid, White announced to her captains. Fire at will. The quantum torpedoes streaked down toward the planet's surface, each one guided by advanced targeting systems developed by human engineers. The weapons passed through the Zephyrian shields as if they did not exist, before striking their targets with devastating precision. On the surface of Zephyr Prime, explosions lit up the night sky as human weapons destroyed military installations that had stood for centuries. The Zephyrian population watched in horror as their seemingly invincible defenses crumbled under the human assault. Supreme Commander Vexitara stood in her command bunker deep beneath the capital city, watching reports stream in from across the planet. Every military installation was under attack. Her defensive fleet was being systematically destroyed by human forces that moved with impossible speed and precision. How are they doing this? She demanded. Their weapons should not penetrate our shields. Intelligence analyst Yexmira had been studying the human attack patterns since the assault began. Her analysis painted a terrifying picture of human technological advancement. Commander, they have developed quantum-based weapons that operate on principles we do not understand, she reported. Our shield technology is useless against them. The space battle raged for 12 hours as human forces methodically dismantled the Zephyrian defenses. Every alien ship that rose to challenge them was quickly destroyed by coordinated attacks from multiple human vessels. The tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Communications Specialist Rob Davis coordinated the electronic warfare campaign that blinded Zephyrian sensors and jammed their communication networks. The aliens found themselves fighting isolated battles against an enemy that could see everything while they remained effectively blind. All Zephyrian military communications are down, Davis reported to Admiral Morrison. They cannot coordinate their remaining forces. Colonel Beth Sanders led the Marine assault teams that boarded damaged Zephyrian ships. Her soldiers wore powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to alien weapons, while giving them superhuman strength and speed. The boarding actions were swift and brutal. Capture any intelligence materials you find, Sanders ordered her troops over the communication network. We need to know everything about their military capabilities. Dr. Karen Bell worked frantically in the medical bays as human casualties were brought in from the fighting. The advanced medical technology and powered armor had kept human losses remarkably low, but every wounded soldier still represented someone's family member. The tide of battle turned decisively when the Zephyrian battlecruiser, Eternal Glory, attempted to ram the UCS Retribution. The massive alien vessel accelerated toward Morrison's flagship, hoping to at least take the human commander with them. Captain Stone's destroyer squadron intercepted the attack, their ships moving with incredible coordination to surround the enemy vessel. Concentrated fire from dozens of human ships broke the Zephyrian battlecruiser apart before it could reach its target. Target destroyed, Stone reported with satisfaction. All remaining enemy vessels are retreating toward the planet. As the third day of battle dawned, the Zephyrian resistance finally collapsed. Their orbital defenses were gone, their fleet was destroyed, and human forces surrounded their homeworld. The once mighty empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia now faced total defeat. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, looking down at the world that had ordered the attack on New Phoenix. The planet that had seemed so invincible 18 months ago now lay defenseless before human guns. Justice had arrived at Zephyr Prime. Open a communication channel to the planetary government, Morrison ordered. It's time to discuss terms. The communication chamber aboard the UCS Retribution had been transformed into a meeting room where the fate of two civilizations would be decided. Admiral Jake Morrison sat across from Supreme Commander Vexitara, the leader who had dismissed humanity's warning and ordered the destruction of New Phoenix. The Zephyrian commander looked smaller than Morrison had expected. Without her ceremonial armor and surrounded by the wreckage of her empire's defeat, she seemed almost fragile. Her yellow eyes no longer held the arrogance that had led to this war. "You have won," Vexitara said simply, her words translated by the communication devices. "State your terms." Morrison studied the alien leader for a moment before responding. Behind him stood Diplomatic Corps Director Steve Brown and Legal Advisor Patricia Green, who had spent months preparing for this moment. The terms they would offer would shape the future of galactic civilization. First, immediate withdrawal of all Zephyrian forces from human territory, Morrison began. Second, reparations to the families affected by the attack on New Phoenix. Third, recognition of human sovereignty over our claimed systems. Vexitara had expected demands for territory, tribute, or slaves. The moderate nature of the human terms surprised her. "That is all? You do not seek to conquer our worlds?" "We seek peace," Morrison replied. "Humanity has no desire to rule over other species. We want only the right to exist freely among the stars." The negotiations continued for 3 days as both sides worked out the details of the agreement. Science liaison. Dr. Frank Miller proposed technology exchange programs that would benefit both civilizations. Cultural exchange coordinator Maria Santos suggested educational initiatives to prevent future conflicts. What shocked the Zephyrian delegation most was humanity's mercy. Instead of the brutal occupation they had expected, the humans offered partnership. Former enemies began discussing joint research projects and trade agreements that would help both species prosper. On the 4th day, the formal surrender ceremony took place in the main hangar of the UCS Retribution. Representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations watched as Supreme Commander Vexitara signed the peace treaty that ended the war. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," Morrison announced to the assembled delegates. "An age where might does not determine right, where young civilizations can grow without fear of conquest." The aftermath of the war brought unexpected changes throughout the galaxy. Admiral Morrison became humanity's first galactic ambassador, working to establish peaceful relations with other species. His diplomatic skills proved as effective as his military leadership had been. Many of the war's heroes transitioned to peacetime roles. Lisa Baker led joint research initiatives with former enemies, developing technologies that benefited all species. Her quantum drive systems revolutionized galactic transportation, making trade and communication faster than ever before. Kevin Park established interstellar communication networks that connected civilizations across vast distances. His quantum communication arrays allowed instant contact between worlds that had been isolated for centuries. The galaxy became smaller and more connected. Diana Chen headed the new Galactic Intelligence Service, an organization dedicated to preventing future conflicts through information sharing and early warning systems. Her networks of agents and analysts worked to identify potential threats before they could develop into wars. Captain Alex Stone took command of deep space exploration fleets, leading humanity's expansion into previously unknown regions of the galaxy. His ships carried scientists and diplomats rather than weapons, extending humanity's influence through peaceful contact rather than conquest. The reconstruction of New Phoenix became a symbol of humanity's resilience and forgiveness. The colony was rebuilt with help from Zephyrian engineers who volunteered to make amends for their empire's actions. The new settlement was more beautiful than the original, with gardens and monuments that celebrated both human and alien cultures. Colonel Ryan Mitchell returned to New Phoenix as its new governor, overseeing the integration of human and Zephyrian families who chose to live together in peace. The world that had been the site of tragedy became a model for interspecies cooperation. Dr. Amanda Foster established the Galactic Psychology Institute, dedicated to understanding how different species could work together effectively. Her research helped prevent the cultural misunderstandings that had led to conflict in the past. 5 years after the war ended, a celebration was held on New Phoenix to commemorate the anniversary of the peace treaty. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to honor those who had died and to celebrate the new age of cooperation that had emerged from the ashes of conflict. Admiral Morrison stood before the memorial wall that bore the names of the humans who had died defending the colony. The inscription below their names had been written by historian Dr. Nancy Wright. They came in peace, left with warning, returned with justice. We remember them not as conquerors, but as defenders, Morrison said to the assembled crowd. They fought so that others might live in peace. In the audience, former Supreme Commander Vexitara listened to the memorial service with tears in her eyes. She had become one of humanity's strongest allies, working to ensure that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The celebration continued into the evening as human and Zephyrian children played together in gardens where battles had once raged. The sight of former enemies laughing and learning from each other represented the greatest victory of all. As the festivities wound down, Morrison received a priority message from Captain Stone, who was leading an exploration mission in the distant Andorian sector. The communication brought news that would shape humanity's future once again. "Admiral, we've made contact with the Andorian Collective," Stone reported. "They've heard about what happened with the Zephyrians. They're requesting formal diplomatic meetings." Morrison smiled as he read the message. Word of humanity's victory and subsequent mercy had spread throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations now approached Earth with respect rather than contempt, seeking partnership rather than conquest. "Tell them we accept," Morrison replied. "Humanity is always ready to make new friends." The response came quickly. The Androians not only wanted to meet, they were offering to share technology and establish trade routes. The reputation humanity had earned through their handling of the Zephyrian conflict was opening doors across the galaxy. As Morrison looked out at the peaceful scene around him, he reflected on how far humanity had come. They had entered the galactic community as unknown newcomers and earned their place through courage, innovation, and ultimately, wisdom. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When Earth warned them, it was wise to listen. But more importantly, they had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or technology, but their capacity for both justice and mercy. The age of human expansion continued, but now it proceeded through friendship rather than fear. The children of Earth had found their place among the stars,